Welcome to Left, Right, Center, where we are covering Colorado politics. First on CBS News Colorado. I'm political specialist Sean Boyd. Denver has its first new mayor in 12 years. Mike Johnston defeated Kelly Brough by 10 points. He will take over for Michael Hancock on July 17th. Johnston was on CBS News Colorado's morning show the day after the election and said his first priority will be to address homelessness.
On day one, being able to work on establishing these micro communities, places where we can create tiny homes and get people who are unhoused off the streets, out of tents, into housing where they have the wraparound services they need. We know this works. We know we've done it before. Now the first step is to be able to identify those sites and start working with neighborhoods to get them up and running so we can get people access to services and back on their feet.
Joining me, our analyst, Democrat Mike Dino, Denver City Councilwoman, at least for another month here, Debbie Ortega, and Republican Dick Wadhams. So, Debbie, let me start with you. Johnston, you heard it said his first step is to identify land for those tiny home villages. He also needs the money. How easy will either be to find?
I think it's going to be a little more challenging than he thinks, given that most of the money is already tied up that came through Denver, the ARPA funding. We do have a dedicated housing funding stream, but it's not enough to do this. And we've been paying for many of the safe open spaces that do exist. We also extended the ordinance to allow them to exist longer at locations. But I think finding the land is going to be challenging unless he can find private property owners that are willing to work, but they're going to want money for their sites as well.
Yeah, the city has done a study, looked at all the sites that it owns, and none of them are suitable for these tiny home villages. You know, Mike, Debbie talked about the money that's going to be available. So Johnston is coming in the middle of the budget process. It's going to, already be underway. The current city council has identified their priorities. You're going to have the new city council coming in and identifying their priorities. How do you see the two of them lining up?
Well, certainly, the new mayor has the ability to say, hey, wait a minute, let's look at this. I mean, the Office of Housing Stability has already allocated $250 million for the next budget for about 1,900 dwellings. And as Debbie pointed out, maybe they have to come in and make an executive decision, and that's certainly within their purview. So,
Dick, former mayoral candidate Lisa Calderon took credit, at least in part, for Johnston's victory. She went on Twitter and said, "Don't let progressives down, and you're welcome." How do you see him thanking the far left, and what kind of role do you see for Lisa Calderon in his administration?
Well, I find it interesting. She kind of half endorsed him to begin with, and now she wants to take all the credit, and now she's making demands on him. It's a funny process to me. Listen, I believe that the Democratic Socialists in Denver pack a big wallop, and they're going to demand some things from him. He's going to have to respond, but it's going to be a little tough on the new mayor, I think.
Yeah, Debbie, Johnston has been a state senator, but he doesn't have any experience in municipal government, at least. Talk about the learning curve he faces here.
The way the city works is drastically different than the way the state works. And I think it depends on how many people he brings in that have city experience to help him really get up to speed. But there is a learning curve, and Mike can talk about that from when he worked with Wellington Webb. But there will be that learning curve, and I think it's all about who you appoint as those key cabinet positions and the other remainder of the 52 appointees that the mayor has.
Right, good point. Mike, as Debbie pointed out, most of the federal stimulus money has already been allocated, and yet Johnston's going to come in and he's got to immediately address homelessness, affordable housing. How much patience do you see Denverites having with him on these issues?
Well, a 10-point victory is pretty significant. But there, 45% of the electorate didn't vote for him. Maybe they will be the ones who have less patience. I think certainly the majority will probably give him some time. But, the homelessness issue, the crime issue are in front of us every day. I mean, on my drive here, I see it. And so if people continue to see it, well, you know, after a few months in office, I think they'll start asking questions.
A few months, that's it.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
So Dick Johnston's wife gave quite a lengthy speech after his win, and she is a deputy district attorney in Denver. So do you think that's going to be problematic for him at all?
I do. You know, if I were the mayor, I'd just get that off the table right now. But why even tempt the media to ask questions about that? I mean, he doesn't need that. And, you know, she's an accomplished lawyer, obviously. I just, if I were the Johnstons, I would come to the conclusion it's not worth it. And she will flourish wherever she goes after this.
So she should.
I think she should back out of that job. I just think that would be the best thing.
And you know, the district attorney investigated Mayor Webb and his administration in the first term.
Wow.
In 1991 to 1995, and so that hasn't happened since.
Right.
But that's an issue where that did come into play.
Right. Debbie, Johnston is announcing his transition team. How much does he get to shape the inauguration, and how much of that is going to be Hancock?
I'm assuming they're having conversations already about what those details look like, where they're going to hold it, you know, all of that stuff. I mean, I've been to so many of them, and sometimes the audience is stuck in the middle of the sun, and the, you know, the
well, the
speeches
media
go
will have
on.
the worst spot, I'm sure. Right?
But I'm assuming that they're already engaged in conversations about that. And I think the good news is there are, you know, city employees who do this work that are not part of the 52 appointees that have been doing it, you know, election after election. So I think it should be a smooth inauguration. It just matters on the details of how much Mike Johnston wants to shape that.
Mm-hmm. So Mike Johnston is run for governor, as you know. He's run for U.S. Senate before mayor. Many politicos think he is using this as a stepping stone. And Governor Polis is term limited, of course. So do you see him, Johnston, meaning running for governor in 4 years, maybe? And if so, how does that affect how he runs the city?
Well, one, he finally won an election that he aimed to go after, and so that's good. He says he'll serve one complete term without running for anything, and that he'll only be in the office for 2 terms. So if he adheres to what he said he'll do, then I think we should expect that. But if he's very successful early on, and he really does solve homelessness, and the crime rate goes down, and Denver moves from 99 as one of the best cities to live in back down to number 1 or 2, he has something to crow about, and it gives him a chance to look at some higher offices.
Absolutely. You know, Dick Johnston, I think, likely to seek higher office. What's the future for Brough? Kelly
You know,
Brough.
I think she can live to fight another day. She did not embarrass herself. In fact, I think she acquitted herself very well. I think Mike had the better campaign, to be honest, not to trash Kelly's effort, but I think Kelly could very well run for something in the future. And you mentioned 2026. Think of everything that's on the ballot in 2026. Plenty of opportunity for Democrats. A lot of open seats.